We're still essentially where we were on, on Monday, but we, we discussed this quite extensively, this union of Ila v'Olu, and how the Ila connects to the Olu, how the Olu connects to the Ila, and thus, logically, it should naturally be drawn to the Ila. And this is all to explain the question, how is it that the Oir descends downwards? Because logically it should be not want to descend downward, it should want to go upwards. Because Oir is always Ila v'Olu. You understand that? This is the emphasis here. Okay, the last line on Daf Vov. V'zeh shekosuv. This is the meaning of what the Pasuk says. Ki havaya leikecho eish eichlo hu. That Hashem, that Elokus is eish eichlo. He's a consuming fire. This is a Pasuk in the Torah. Why is Elokus compared to fire? Shenimshach Elokus le'eish. Nimshal Elokus le'eish. Elokus is compared to fire. If you want to illustrate Elokus one way, you would use fire as an illustration. In what sense? The k'moi sheteva ha'oish hu la'alis l'maylo. That just as the nature of fire is to rise upwards, k'moi kein, similarly, ha'oir ha'eliki, the godly light, who tomid bebchinas aliyah, is consistently in a state of aliyah, in a state of rising upwards. In other words, even if we have it downwards, it's in innate nature is to rise upwards. Just like fire. Fire also exists here. But while it exists here, its innate nature is to rise upwards. And we somehow manage to hold it down. But it's holding it down. Not that it naturally wants to stay down. La lois bi'ilui achar ilui. And the godly light has the tendency to rise higher and higher. Not just to the next stage, but then continuously upwards and upwards. Be'atzmusoi dafki. All the way into Atzmus. V'loi leirid lamato. And not the opposite of to descend up downwards. That's the innate nature of Eir Eliki. This innate nature in the Eir Eliki to rise upward represents not just an internal struggle, but it actually represents the presence of its source wherever the light is. The significance of it rising upwards is that it's constantly pointing to its source. It says that I am not the real thing. Wherever I am, you see only me, but I'm not the real thing. The real thing is the source. This we illustrated the other day, a couple of lessons ago, by using the light of the sun, that the real nature of the light of the sun and the real reason why why it illuminates is because it is always pointing to the sun, not to its own presence, its own existence. We will still have a chance to discuss this more. I just want to point out this union of not descending downwards, but the tendency to rise upwards is significant in that it actually represents that which is higher, even while it is below. V'chein hu b'chol dover ruchni. This is true in every ruchnizik, in every spiritual aspect. Shehu b'chinas ali yodavka. Every dover ruchni has an inherent quality of the union of aliyah. Ukmei ba'odam lamato, as for instance in the human being lamato, shehanefesh, that the nefesh of the person, even though it is contained in the body, tiv'o gam kein la'alos l'maylo, its nature is also la'alos l'maylo, is to rise and to go up, upwards. Ukmeisha Kosov, as the Posik says, V'shofeho rish be'esh shall heves yutke, that the flames of the neshama are rish be'esh, is like in tongues of fire, shall heves yutke, and a flame of a godly flame. Ukmoi halahav shoyle tomid l'maylo, just as a flame rises upwards constantly. Similarly, the nefesh, he told me, b'bchinas halo, is always in a state of halo, in a state of rising upwards. V'hu lehepech miteva haguf. This is opposite of the nature of the body. Shehu b'vchinas hamshocho v'yirido lamato dafka. The goof by nature is in a state of hamshocho v'yirido, to be drawn downwards. And the nefesh, its nature is to go upwards. Okmei shekosuv, and as the Pasuk says, Ruach ha'odom ha'oi lohi l'maylo, that the spirit of Odom, which is the nefesh, which rises upwards, v'ruach habheimo hi hayeredes lamato, and then there is the spirit of the bheimo, that its direction, its intent is yeredes lamato, is to descend downwards. The Ruach HaOdom, in this pasuk it says Ruach HaOdom, the spirit of Odom, Hu HaNefesh HaLekis. Shebei. This is the Nefesh HaLekis that's in Odom. Shenikra Odom Koyodua. The Nefesh HaLekis is called Odom. And this Nefesh HaLekis, Hu B'bchinas Aliyah Dafka. Its nature is constantly in state of aliyah. The ruach habheim, oshuhu haguf, and then there is the ruach habheim, which is the body. V'nefesh habamis, hu b'bchinas yirido. He is in a state of Eden. Bibchinas Eden. Okay, we'll stop here for a moment. I want to discuss this terminology, Bibchinas Eden, Bibchinas Aliyah. Let's take a very, very, very simple analogy. One is learning something, and he finds it difficult to break through and to understand what he's learning. Something is not, he's not breaking through, something doesn't stick. There could be two reactions to that obstruction. One reaction is giving up. It's too hard. And I'll analyze it in a minute. And another reaction is, I better get myself together. I better concentrate harder and break through this obstacle. What is the source of these two reactions? In the first case, well, we have to listen carefully, okay? In the first case, in every situation when a person learns something, there are two sides to this pursuit, meaning there are two things that are pushing him and urging him on to learn it. One is the obvious one. He will learn, and this will enhance his person. He will have this additional knowledge. He will be a more important person. He'll be respected, whatever it is, some personal gain. It's obvious from every learning there is that inyan that enhances the person. It will enhance him. It'll take away obstacles from his path. The other is that by this learning, he will experience a perception, an understanding that is illuminating and very elevating, very significant, something that he wants to actually experience and have. That was the experience of the understanding alone, not that he gains personally from it, but just the understanding of it is something that that draws him to it. And here is where these two reactions are rooted. The reaction when he says, I want to give up. Why would he want to give up? Because the whole thing, because there is inherent in his pursuit the seeking for personal gain personal enhancement. But when he sees that it disturbs him so much and it demands so much that he has to work so hard, he says it disturbs me too much, it doesn't pay. I can disturb myself so much to gain this additional enhancement. The reaction when he says, "Oh, I better garner up all my strength and break through this obstacle," this comes from the sense that this is so profound and this is so refined, and I am so far away from it that I have to break through it. I can't give up. If we analyze these two reactions, we see it's not just a reaction of a person whether he's lazy or not lazy. It is a reaction that says, on the one hand, he is going downwards. Even at a time when he's learning it, he has a perception of going downwards, because the idea is that it is to enhance himself, to enhance his mitzias, to strengthen his present mitzias. That's going downwards. And the other one is a tendency to go upwards, to get out of his mitzias, to get out of his limits, break through the obstacles, and get an insight that he has no way. He sees that it's so far he can't even get to it. He can't even understand it, and he urges something urging him on. So he's very eager to get to it. Why is he eager to get to it? Because he has a tendency of going upwards. He doesn't want to be in the mitzias where he is. He wants to have something higher. This is inherent in the person. The oilo lamaylo and yiredes lamata.
How is number two the wanting not to for it to be like a personal benefit, but to have it seems just more like it's like more of a doc example of number one. Like like he wants a higher, but it's for him. Like he wants a higher perspective. It's for he feels like he wants to know, kind of different perspective. It's just seeing how much see the difference. It seems more refined, but it seems of the same caliber.
Yeah. In this pursuit of wanting a higher thing, wanting a higher thing means in this desire is inherent that he does not want to redefine and to enhance his current position, his mitzias. He senses that there is something much brighter, much greater than than being a mitzias. There's something, a truth that is beyond just existence, and he wants to have a sense of that truth. It is not to build himself up. It says that in Gan Eden, what is the whole inyan of Gan Eden? To us in this world, it sounds a little bit like anticlimactic. Here, we not Baruch Hashem, we have a different sense, but bichlal in the world, what is a pursuit? To build myself up, to have something for myself. What's in Gan Eden? In Gan Eden it says that the tzaddikim yoshvim and they have hanoah oineg from understanding Elokus. And they're constantly rising in understanding and perception of Elokus. The Rambam describes the also in time of Mashiach. What will be the pursuit? What will be, and ultimately, what will human beings be indulging in? To know Ladas is Hashem. To know Hashem. By knowing of Hashem, and then everybody else also knows Hashem. So it's not a question of being outstanding, of being recognized. It's the experience of knowing Hashem. What kind of experience is this? What does it mean? What kind of oineg is this? To the nefesh, ha'odam, whose inherent... I want to explain the word bibchinas aliyah. There is a saying, they say in a state of aliyah, a state of rise. That's not the point. The point is bibchinas aliyah. Bibchinas aliyah means the definition of the nefesh is that it's not seeking to be. The definition of nefesh is to know that which is higher than itself. To come out of Mitzrayim, to break through, to rise upward. Rising upwards is not a secondary quality in the nefesh, but the nefesh is bibchinas aliyah. Just like, and this is why I gave this illustration. It is a state of human mind that he wants to break through out of his limits and to understand and to perceive something more true than he perceives now. This, I'm sorry?
It's non-stop also, right? It's non-stop.
Non-stop. This is b'bechinas aliyah. That's the definition of nefesh. And then there is b'bechinas yirida. That's the definition of nefesh abamis. I'm sorry? Yirida. Yirida means to enhance the mitzias. To strengthen the current mitzias. And this is what the Rebbe says, that every inyan ruchni that is inherent in ruchnis. In other words, that's what it defines itself with ruchnis. The nefesh, its inyan is it's a b'bechinas aliyah. I want to give a little bit more of a background to this. One more point to this. What's behind this inyan? That the nefesh is b'chinas aliyah, and the guf, nefesh abamis, is b'chinas yirida. The quality that's behind it is simply a very simple principle, that each one is seeking to be closer to its source. When you pick up an object, a physical object, and let go, what will happen to it? It'll fall down. Why will it fall down? What's inherent in that falling down? inherent in that falling down is that as long as it has not come down to the lowest level and being supported solidly on the ground, its own mitzias is tantamount, is precarious, is shaky. Why is it shaky? Because it's a limited entity. A limited entity, anything limited by definition, is lacking shlemus, is lacking completeness, because he knows that there are things outside of himself. When he goes down to the ground, this attaches him to what? To everything. The ground is the source of everything. And thus he feels solidly rooted. Now he's not precarious anymore. Let's discuss this in human terms. A person pursues a certain field of occupation. He becomes an engineer. And he's doing a good job as an engineer. In his little shop, he's doing a good job as an engineer. That alone is not the end of his road. That alone is not satisfying. He wants to excel. He wants to be recognized by other engineers as a superior engineer. Why does he need to be recognized? By being recognized, he doesn't become a better engineer. What's in it that he be recognized? So, if we think about it, at least from one perspective, what he's looking for when he is an engineer unto himself, he knows that he can do, and he does a good job. But there are others also that can do. And as long as there are others that can also do, that means that he is not in a position, that he is not in a guaranteed position. When is he in a guaranteed position? When he is recognized by as many as can be. Then, the more he is recognized, the more solidly he becomes a Metzias, declared as a real engineer. Up until that time, he's an engineer by virtue of what he does, not by virtue of who he is. When he's recognized, then he feels more calm, because he's got a solid base. The similar thing is in an object falling down. An object falls down because when it is by itself in the air, it is a limited entity. It's not calm. It's not secure, so to speak, where it is. When it comes down to the ground is the base of all. Then it reached its goal. Then it has a secure place of being. It has a place on the earth itself. Like this, it's in space. When it reaches the earth, it has a place on the earth itself, which is the source of all space. It can no longer be displaced. The similar Inyan is in the Ruchnis. When he is seeking to go upwards, it's a similar Inyan, but in the reverse, of course. Because whatever one understands, it is still limited. Whatever truth one perceives, it's still limited. And therefore, it does not have the full brightness of truth until he goes to the next madreg. It is true to a certain degree. And the Nefesh Ha'odam seeks truth not to a certain degree, but truth to the absolute degree. And that is only true in Atzmos. So this Inyan, that it's Bibchinas Yirida, Bibchinas Aliyah, is part of the definition of the object itself. We say that every object has weight. Why does it have weight? Because it seeks to go downwards. That's why it has weight. It's part of the definition of the object itself. Okay? And this is what I mentioned, that the tzaddikim, that the Osud Lovei, what will be sought, what will be the pursuit, a human pursuit? It will be L'da'as Hashem. They've been no concern at all about mitzias, about being. The whole experience of life will consist of knowing deeper and clearer the inner of Elokus. Because to exist as such, nobody's interested in. The interest is to know the truth of the truth of Elokus. Okay, now we go inside. So Ruach HaOdam is Nefesh Olikis, and it is Bibchinas Aliyah, which means the definition of Nefesh Olikis is that it rises upwards. And the definition of Jabamis is Bibchinas Yirida. On Mikol Mokoim, yet still Hari HaNefesh Yoired V'nimshech L'Hachis Es HaGuf. Nefesh, nevertheless, even though its inherent presence, its inherent koyach is that it rises upwards, and yet the nefesh comes down to give life to the body. What does it mean to give life to the body? What does it mean it come down to give life to the body? We're not talking about the physical life only. We're talking about that the nefesh comes down to illuminate the person's mind and heart, so that we can understand the Inyonim Malakiyim in a physical context. We can have godly perceptions in a physical context. This is a Yerida for the Neshama, for the Nefesh. This is, and yet the Nefesh does this. Why? Elo, and this is contrary to its structure, to what it is. Elo exception zehu b'derech hechrech. This union that the nefesh comes down is not a natural thing in the nefesh.
What is it?
It's not a natural thing in the nefesh. It is b'derech hechrech. I'll discuss it in a minute. Derech hechrech means it is forced to do this. Hepech tivoi, which is contrary to its nature. Ukemaimer. Ukemaimer. As the saying is, and it says in the Mishnah, Bal korchoch ato chai. Bal korchoch ato chai. That you live bal korchoch. It's mean bal korchoch. We're talking about not the human being. Human being wants to live. The nefesh in the goof is bal korchoch. Something is holding it. Something is pushing it down. The ma'aseh nefesh chai b'toich haguf. And this fact that the nefesh lives in the goof, and I said it doesn't mean just the presence of the nefesh, but the nefesh actually communicates, and that nefesh actually wants that the union of Elokus should be known at the level of the goof. Hu bal korcha. That is bal korcha. Shaloi lefi tivoi v'ritzonehu atzmi. Not according to its natural and to its nature and its inherent roots. How do we understand the difference? Or let's say it's behechrech, whatever forces it. But we have to kind of understand the concept of the nefesh being in the guf behechrech. Let's say you wake up in the morning and you naturally feel lazy, you don't feel like getting up. But then your intellect tells you you have to get up. So you get up behechrech, you force yourself up. In contrast, you wake up in the morning and you've slept enough and you're tired of being in bed and you jump up. What is the difference between these two experiences? In the second case, when so to speak, you physically jump out of the bed because physically you don't want to be in bed anymore, then the getting up is not an intended action. It doesn't have an intentional pursuit. You're not getting up because you're looking for something. You're getting up because you're just getting up. Just like when you go to sleep, you're not looking for something, you're just plopping down. You're getting up also the same thing, the same way. When you get yourself up, that means you're getting up because you recognize there is something to be gained by getting up. You're pursuing something. So this behechrech, on the one hand, it's behechrech, it's kind of not natural. On the other hand, this brings out a deeper recognition of the value of getting up. Because it means that you really recognize, hey, there is something in it that even though I don't feel like I will do it. Because there is some real value to it. Not just the experience of getting up, but the pursuit that comes with it. Doesn't mean behechrech. You force yourself to do it. And forcing yourself to do it against your nature means that you perceive a value. Something is drawing you to do it. This is the difference between behechrech and beteva. Something that happens beteva means that you're not really internally, deeply involved in what you're doing. It just happens. It may be a very great thing, but you're not internally involved in it. That was the deeper aspects of yourself, the deeper aspects of decision making, of recognizing value in your life and value in pursuit is not involved. Whereas if it's behechrech, means that there is a much deeper quality that comes that is involved in this, much deeper recognition. So we're saying that the nefesh in the guf is not betef. It's not just a natural thing. The nefesh is in the guf. What would be if the nefesh is just in the guf beteva? What would be the state of mind and the state of the human life? The nefesh is in the guf beteva. It means that just to be in the physical world is okay.
Because nefesh b'hanas.
It'd be like nefesh b'hanas. In other words, it's not there to accomplish something. There is no particular reason for being there. It's just there because it fits. There's no sense of urgency, no sense of purpose. And therefore, and as a result of that, human life in his own perception also is without a sense of purpose. I'm here. Just like a Havdalah B'Heima, I'm here. Him doesn't have a sense of purpose for being. He'd say, I'm here. Nefesh is behechrech means, it's there because it's machriach itself to be. It's hevach tivui. That means that being here is of great significance. I'm choosing to be here. I'm making it be. So that this brings a certain sense of purpose in the very existence of the person. Not just to making myself comfortable, but the very existence of who I am, there's a certain sense of purpose. Okay. This is the nefesh is behechrech in the guf.
We all the way will talk about how important it is to be comfortable with what you are, right? To be like settled in where you are, to be involved in just like basically like so all the way about
What we talked about yesterday.
right, this kind of stuff. So
Yeah.
And this is like seems to be like a different things, like two opposite things.
Mm. The comfort that we are talking all the time is the sense of I am where I'm supposed to be. I'm not in a strange land where I don't stick, I don't belong. Okay? It's nothing to do with this Indian. Yes, I'm there intentionally, but I belong there. In other words, it is not a place where I'm not wanted, I'm not needed. I want to be there, but you are, the expression of the fifth wheel to the wagon. Hmm? Fifth wheel to the wagon. A wagon has four wheels. A wheel, a guidon, or whatever it's called. Okay. Or coming from elsewhere, and coming into this without being invited. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm talking about. But this is universally true. In other words, the nefesh is in the bechinas aliyah, and it comes in the guf bebeifim from the hechrech. And I explained to you what is the significance, what it means beifim shel hechrech. Beifim shel hechrech means that it is doing something. There's an intent of being there.
I'm confused. Hacklers does not. It doesn't mean by force. It does mean by force, and by force indicates that there's an intent. Yeah.
Right.
But with the mashal, whatever outside thing is causing the person to force himself out of bed, but the thing doesn't actually force him out of bed. It's he himself that forces him out of bed. But is it the same with the nefesh, or it's the nefesh? It's not the eish that forces the nefesh into the body.
We will understand it. Next step. It is the hechrech. The nefesh, the nefesh is forced into the body. And we will discuss this in terms of what brings it in and so forth. And we have to understand like this. Before we introduce you to the answer to your question, okay, which we'll discuss later. The nefesh is through and through nefesh. It's life through and through. It's not like you always use this emotionally. You grab an apple and you eat it without making a bracha. That's for sure, right? So you don't even really have permission to eat this apple. You're eating an apple. You're degrading the significance of an apple. Okay. How are you able to do it? You're able to do it because the apple is physical, and you grab it by its physical limits. It has no choice but being in your hand. The nefesh doesn't work that way. Because the nefesh, in order to be in the guf, the nefesh has to give chayas to the guf. And to give chayas into the guf, it has to be there fully. You can't just put it there. If we were to expand our example from eating an apple, let's say, go a little further and say that when you eat the apple, you didn't just grab it, you eat it, and the apple gives you chayas. There is already a difference. If you eat the apple properly, and you want to get the chayas, the real chayas from the apple, then if you eat properly, it gives you the real chayas. If you gobble it down, you just have the taste of an apple, but it doesn't really, you don't give it a chance to really acclimate to your body and really be digested properly. And it doesn't really give you the chayas. In other words, to be bipnimius, through and through, that cannot be forced externally. It can be forced, but the force has to come from inside. Okay. If somebody forces you out of bed, forces you literally, and you don't get the point on your own, what are you going to be able to do? Nothing. We're talking about getting up and pursuing a positive life, pursuing an active day. For that, yes, it's forcing, but the force has to involve you yourself. Otherwise, it's nothing happens. If somebody doesn't force you, he picks you up and stands you up, nothing happened. You haven't gotten out of bed. You don't start the day. That's not called forcing, that's called doing it for you. Forcing means giving you the impetus and then you force yourself because it has to be a pnimi zikirin. Oh. Now we go further. So this is the nefesh is muchrach bal korchei shalei tivin etzenim b'hamatzmi. Umihu hamachrichoi. What forces it? What is the hech? Who is machriach the nefesh to be hilamat? Zehu haguf. The guf. The guf has some quality in it that it beckons the nefesh to come, and the nefesh, against its will, against its nature, says, yeah, I better go there. Even though it means going down. How is it? What's in the guf? How can the guf be machriach the nefesh? לפי ששורש ומוקר הגוף הוא למיילו מהנפש. Because the shorish of the guf, meaning the true godly force that the guf represents, the godly spark that is inherent in the guf, is lamailo me'anefesh, is higher than that of the nefesh. And that's why the nefesh is forced by the guf. Forced, in other words, internally forced. It's like a magnetic force. He wants to go there because there's something too great that he should ignore in the guf. Because the guf has something that the nefesh does not have at all. L'mayla mi'hanefesh. Uki yodua as is known, v'hanefesh shorshe mimchinas memale kol almi.
So that the goof is forcing the nefesh to come in, that's not pneumius hechrich to the nefesh, because the goof is just forcing. It's not. It's a hechrich. The nefesh doesn't have a choice. The whole point of a force is because you force yourself to choose that way.
That's right. The nefesh forces itself to choose that way.
Because of how special.
Because of how special the guf is. The nefesh senses that whatever it has, it will never get through its own offices, its own capabilities, what it can gain by coming into the guf. What is the difference? What is when the guf is higher mokeh than the nefesh? What does that mean? Ki yodua the nefesh shoshi mibchinas memale kol al. The nefesh is rooted from bchinas memale kol al. However high the nefesh is, and there are different madrigas in nefesh. But all told, whatever the madrigas is and however high you go, it is always in the bechina, within the realm of what's called memale kolam. Memale Kol Almin means filling all the worlds. You heard of that term, I'm sure. Memale Kol Almin and Seva Kol Almin. We'll discuss briefly what it is in a minute. Nefesh Shoshei Mebchinas Memale Kol Almin. Avol Haguf, but the body, Shoshei Meyoirei Soiv HaSoivev Kol Almin. The Shoresh of the Guf is from Soivev Kol Almin, which is also called Oirein Soiv. Oirein Soiv, that's HaSoivev Kol Almin. What does this mean? Before we discuss it, shall Zen Ne'emar. This is what the Pasuk says regarding the Shoresh of the Guf, that is from Oirein Soiv HaSoivev Kol Almin. Kol asher chofetz havaye osa. All that Hashem chofetz wants, desires, osa. That's what He does. What is the significance of this pasuk? The asiya hu mibchinas chayfetz v'rotzen havaya dafki. That the in of asiya, deed, and asiya is the lowest element there is. Asiya. That represents, and that is rooted, and that comes from chayfetz v'rotzen havaya. From Madrege, what's called chayfetz v'rotzen, desire and will. Briefly, what does this say? We know in a human being there are various koiches. Generally speaking, these koiches are contained within the number of 10. You can say by the starting from Chochmo, Bina V'das, Chabad, Chagas, Nehi, and Malchus. These are the 10 koiches that are representative of all human activity. He understands there are 3 koiches in the process of understanding. Feels there are 3 koiches in the process of feeling. Chesed, Gvura, Tiferes, Ava, Yira, and Rachmi. He pursues a goal. There are 3 koiches of that level in the emotion, that motorizes him to pursue it. That's Nehi. That's a Hoyvisot. This represents all human activities. Then these are called the human activities that are identifiable in his action. What are you doing? I'm learning. I'm thinking. I'm walking. I'm talking. Then there are koiches that are in a different category than all of these. Because a human being, just as we discussed the other day, that a person moves his arm, the koyach to move the arm pre-existed the movement. The koyach to move the arm exists in a passive state as well. In a basic state. Doesn't have to be moving in order to be. So too is the human being internally existent in a passive state, meaning he doesn't have to be doing anything. And he is also a human being. He's alive. And somehow, from this life, he decides what he should do at this moment. Whether he should learn, daven, play ball, whatever it is. What is going on in the human being that is beyond the process of these ten koiches? There are, in other words, there is a certain chayas, an inherent chayas in the person that is always there, no matter what he does. The same person who is learning, that's the same person who is performing acrobatics. It's not a different person. He's doing different things, but is he a different person? It's not the same, it's the same person. What unites them? In what sense is he the same person? That hasn't changed at all. There are koiches in a person that are called koiches makifim. Makifim means that they're all encompassing. All encompassing means that whatever he does, even though now he's doing something totally different than before, so he's using a different koyach. But behind that, there's another aspect of the person that is exactly the same that was when he did the other thing. So these are called koiches makifim. The koiches makifim, generally speaking, we identify koiches makifim as two, rotzen and noinek. The koyach harotzen, or the inyan of rotzen, of wanting, we have to be able to identify, distinguish between I want a specific thing, which means I have identified something that I want. This is when the rotzen is active in a particular direction, a particular way. Then there is a constant rotzen in the person. He wants to be, he wants to live. He wants to understand, he wants to experience on a much higher level than the active rotzen, which needs to be identified. That rotzen is always there, even when he's sleeping, when he's doing nothing. This rotzen is much more representative of the essence of the person than the rotzen that identifies a specific pursuit. Because that specific pursuit can change from moment to moment. Sometimes I want this, sometimes I want that. But that inherent rotzen doesn't change. This is the person. A person, as long as he's alive, has that rotzen. That is essentially the spirit of life itself. If Hashana should not have that rotzen, then he has lost the spirit of life completely. It's synonymous with spirit of life. The spirit of life is not just I'm alive, and that's it. Now I'm neutral. Now something has to poke me in order for me to react to it, and then I want that it shouldn't be poked. That's not the way what life is. Life is I want. There is an inherent want in the person, a desire, a pursuit. This rotzen is, as I said, is much more representative. There are higher inyanim than that, but this is much more representative to the essence of the nefesh than the koiches, than the specific koiches. This is what's called, in Lamaila, this is called Soiv Kolam. And this is also called Oirein Soif. Why is it called Oirein Soif? In contrast to Mamali. Because in Mamali, as we said, it's either Chochmah or Bina or Das. They're identifiable entities, qualities, pursuits. Whereas in the Shrotzen, that encompasses the whole person. This is called Ein Sof. There is no limit, there is no definition to it. It's Oir Ein Sof of Elokus. And this is what he says here. The nefesh, the whole nefesh is rooted in the union of a Malik Olam. Because the nefesh represents, very briefly, the nefesh represents a certain type of pursuit, certain type of desire. Whereas the guf, the mocker of the guf is in Seva Kolam. And that represents a completely different inyan in Elokus. And he says that this is what the Pasuk says, that represents chayfetz, kasher chofetz avayos. What is represented in Asiyah? In general, the level of Asiyah, this is the chayfetz. In other words, this highest inyan, this rotz, that cannot be expressed in any particular activity. Where is it represented? In Asiyah. In the deed. Which in Mitzvah we will enhance further. But just to conclude this union, and this is why we say that the guf, because the guf is in the level of Asiyah, it has the shoyresh, it has the union of Sovel Kolami, and the nefesh recognizes that it is a tremendous aliyah, so ultimately. Aliyah beyond its own shoyresh, that it cannot reach in terms of its own aliyahs rising through its worlds. That it gains by being lowered, coming down to the guf, and playing with the guf at its level, and starting to understand things in a very low and simple level, but with the guf, that's a tremendous gain for the nefesh.
I think I missed a point. Did you say why Dafka Asiyah is the level of the constant nefesh? Like the
No, I did not. We have to elaborate. I don't have the time for this now. But what I did say is about the nefesh. And then in contrast to that, we will see in Asiyah. What I said about the nefesh,
the nefesh and the way it acts.
the nefesh is representing a certain message, a certain inyan, a certain koyach. Nefesh bichlal consists of koyches. That's why this is called memale kolam. In contrast to that, there is the guf, which represents the inyan of chayfetz, the inyan of Sevel Kolam and Oirin Seif. And that, how and so forth, that we have to leave for next time. But, and
The guf is like you're the same person no matter what time of the day. That's the idea of the guf.
yeah, but there's much more to it. And this is what the nefesh, this is what's machriach the nefesh to come into the guf. And to be machayed. So it is a hechrech. But as we said, hechrech itself means that there is a deeper perception in what it's going, what it's looking for. A perception that he recognizes that there is something that with all that I have, I will never gain on my own. Something which is totally beyond my own koiches. And that's what's machriach me to do it. This is that hechrich. And the same is true, and just to conclude, same is true in terms of Torah mitzvahs. Torah mitzvahs is a hechrich. But this is a hechrich, and a hechrich to the point where we can never, at least while we're in this state of Golus and in this limited state of understanding, fully relate and understand the union of mitzvahs and be able to relate to them as simple, worldly, human pursuits. And we are muchrach in the mitzvahs, but we are machriach ourselves because we recognize that there is something, there is a certain truth that is completely beyond our own mitzvahs. That's why we're seeking that which is beyond, outside of our mitzvahs. Yeah, come.